Hello, I'm Vine and welcome to Overthinking. Today's topic is Vine's Quadrature, a little tool that I made to analyze any given magic system for roleplay purposes. A little context before this. In the past, I played a lot of tabletop RPGs. D&D, Pathfinder, Volsung, Warhammer, Call of Cthulhu, etc. And studied even more. My journey culminated even in creating my own RPG system. The thing is that during those years of TTRPGing, I noticed that in a lot of systems, the magic feels different. Often, when you switch from one to another, you will make a lot of narrative mistakes in your mage roleplay. Mostly because you don't get the vibe of a particular magic system right away. This is why I created my Quadrature, a tool to quickly determine characteristics of any given magic system so I can roleplay a mage more lore-friendly in any given RPG. And now I'm translating this thing to English for you to enjoy. Let's start with assumptions, just to clear some things and avoid confusion or misuse. First, there are no extremities. This is very important as we determine here the characteristics of a narrative motive. And narrative motives are almost never rigid logical extremities because it would be too limiting for narration itself. Second, it's not about power level. Vine's Quadrature doesn't care about the might of any given magic system. The magic can be weak, can be strong. Tool is determining only the rules of the magic system and not its power leveling. It might be counterintuitive as the power of magical abilities are often the most important things for RPG's narration, but it's also one of the things that you don't have to care about because RPG mechanics are often designed to have clear indications of magical power, skill levels, spell levels, amounts of damage, areas of effect, etc. This is all in the rules of any role-playing game, so determining the power level is just redundant here. Third, we have to look at the magic system from a specific magic user point of view. This is because fundamental rules of any given magic system can differ between magic users and normies. Moreover, in some magic systems, they can differ even between the magic users themselves. So, strictly defined POV is required to use the Quadrature. Now, when we know where we are standing, I can show you the Vine's Quadrature itself. Ta-da! It's a square, mostly because it's built on two axes. Vertical one is about the logical rules of the magic system, how specifically they affect the given world. Those rules can be mystical or rational. Digression. If you ever heard about Brandon Sanderson's laws of magic and terms like soft magic system and hard magic system, this axis is similar to that. In some ways even the same, but for writing stories and not role-playing games. So if you know it, it will help you to understand and use the mystical rational axis. And if you don't, then don't worry, because now we will determine how to place the specific magic system on this axis with a few questions to your dungeon master. What are the rules of the magic system? This is the most basic question that can identify the magic system as mystical or rational. But the reply for this question is almost always a lore dump and not a straight answer. So the key here is listening to how the rules sound. If they are vague, emotion-based and often spiritual in their meaning, that's an indicator for a mystical magic system. For example, only pure of heart can master the healing spells is clearly a vague and abstract mystical rule. On the other hand, precise, empirical, and logical rules are indicators for a rational magic system. For example, fire spells can rapidly increase temperature to create explosions is a precise, empirical, and rational rule. Of course, one question is not enough. So let's also ask the rest of them, shall we? What is the process of using magical abilities? This is a more precise version of the basic question. Incantations and rituals are often indicators of mystical magic systems. On the other hand, something like energy manipulation is an indicator of a rational magic system. Is magic treated as scientific or religious art by its users? This is the question that indirectly asks for roleplay examples. If the magic is treated as religious art, this is of course an indicator for a mystical magic system. If the magic is treated as a scientific art, this is an indicator for a rational magic system. How specific are magical effects? This is the question that indirectly asks for magical consequences. Loose, moldable, and extraordinary effects are an indicator for a mystical magic system. Example: fire spell that has violet color and takes the shape of an animal. But concrete, straightforward, and ordinary effects are an indicator for a rational magic system. Example: fire spell that acts just like a real flamethrower with minimal amount of special effects. Can a magic system be described mathematically? This is the question that indirectly asks for a tangible data in the spell description. But don't be fooled. TTRPGs are just narrative math in their essence. We are looking here for a math in a given system lore. To put it simply, the more math is required to use and analyze the magic by its user, the more rational it is. To what degree does the magic system negate the rules of conventional physics? Final question is the reverse of the previous one. How much do magic rules care about non-magical rules? And the more they break conventional physics, the more mystical the magic system is. After asking every question on this list, you should be able to determine if the magic system is rational, undetermined, or mystical. Just sum up the conclusions from all the answers, remembering that the basic one has the weight of 2, and try to pick the conclusion that appears 5 times or more. But remember to have some common sense with your judgments, as every answer can be misleading, and do not take your judgment over your dungeon master word. Let's get back to the square and look at the horizontal axis. That's the placement of magic power, determining if the magic itself is a part of its user or not. In comparison to the other axis, this one is extremely simple to understand because it just asks where is the source of magic, inside or outside the mage that is our POV? Unfortunately, magic systems sometimes keep the answer to this question vague on purpose, or just have multiple magic sources, which naturally complicates things. But do not fear, I like complicated things and have 4 questions that you can ask your game master. What is the source of magic in the magic system? The simplest question that also answers where is the magic source. Is a body, mind, or soul a source of it? That's probably internal magic. Magic is a part of the world or deity? That's probably external magic. But if the answer to this question is too vague, there are 3 more questions. Are magical abilities acquired or innate? Innate magical abilities are often an argument for the internal magic system, as being born with something is often a synonym of this something being a part of the person. On the other hand, if the magic user can learn magic without innate magical talent, it's an argument for an external magic system. Nonetheless, the innate magical talent is often used just as a narrative limiter of magic users in the system regardless of the magic source. So, the answer to this question is not always a clear indicator of magic placement. Can you deprive a magic user of magical abilities? If a mage can be deprived of his magic without any side effects, that suggests external magic source. But the more consequences there are, the more of a chance that the magic is a part of his being and thus internal, especially if he dies without it. Are there places without magic? Zones where magic does not work are a common feature of external magic systems. But this nullification does not have to mean that POV mage is cut off from the magic source. It can also be a forced suppression or simple interference. So it's more important to know how magic nullification works before determining if magicless zones indicate an external magic system. Just like before, after asking every question of this list, where the first counts as 2, you should be able to determine if the magic system is internal, undetermined, or external. Sum up the conclusions and pick the one that appears 3 times or more. Quadrature explained. Now, by determining how the magic works and where it comes from, we can roleplay a magic user from any universe more accurately. We can also move on to the second part of this video and play with this tool a little. As you can see, these 2 axes with 3 clearly definable ranges gives us the opportunity to divide it into 9 spaces to fill, just like the character alignment chart from D&D. And since I know that people like charts like that, let's put some magic into it, shall we? First one is external mystical, aka proper magic. This naming and first place in order are not coincidental, as this is a magic system that first comes to mind when someone says the word magic. Most RPG settings use this one as default. And since this is the most popular vanilla magic system, let's use the most popular vanilla TTRPG example, Dungeons & Dragons, where wizards use the weave that entwines almost the whole setting with magic. This magic system checks all boxes in external mystical questionnaire. Magic rules completely negate laws of physics, spell components are arbitrary, magic effects can be role-played very artsy, and math is used here only for game mechanic purposes, not really in lore. Wizards are born with no talent and learn how to cast spells by extensive study. You can even deprive them completely of their magic by stealing their magic book and component pouch. Even places without the weave exist. And not only wizards are like that. Clerics, druids, and most warlocks are also external mystical mages, even if they have different sources. But not all caster classes in D&D fall into this category, so expect them to be mentioned later as guests in other types of magic systems. Next one is undetermined mystical, aka chosen one magic. This one is more popular with novels rather than games, but I managed to find an example of it that my viewers will probably know better than the D&D one. Psykers using the warp from Warhammer 40k. I hope that I don't have to explain how space magic, heavily influenced by emotions, faith and rituals, is clearly mystical in nature, but I owe you an explanation why the source of it is undetermined. Psykers are born with genetic mutation that allows them to use warp-based powers. Taking this power away is very hard, often killing a Psyker or making him a blank, which is still a Psyker, just a negative one and not a normal person. It's much easier to suppress their powers with force than negate them. Sounds quite internal, but yet it's confirmed that the Psykers use the warp as the source of their powers, which is external, but yet warp is a dimension created from the souls of intelligent beings that fuel it with faith and other emotions, giving us something like a chicken and egg dilemma. That's why Psyche powers are undetermined. As a guest from D&D, we have a sorcerer who, in addition to using the weave, is a class of mages having innate magical powers that tune them better to it. Sorcerers are still using mainly external souls, but have also a bloodline feats that work even without it, making their magic mechanic an undetermined mystical system because of two sources. Now, internal mystical, aka divinity. To be honest, I tried to avoid religion-oriented names, but this one was just the best for this concept. System where magic comes from within the user and is complete fantasy, it just sounds divine. For an example here, we will reach to the novels going with witches and wizards from the Harry Potter series. Magic is clearly mystical there, as its rules are intuitive and based more on Latin grammar than logic, which, funny enough, was even a small plot point in the first book. HP fans will also immediately know why I classified this magic system as internal, despite the fact that wizards there use wands to cast spells. This might be confusing for muggles, but the magic itself is a part of the wizard there, and it's absolutely possible to use magic without a wand. Harry even did that on few occasions. The most spectacular was the one when he inflated his aunt like a balloon. Wizards in this setting just need wands to focus their magic to avoid wild outcomes like this. Let's get more rational. External undetermined, aka alchemy. The magic systems that take inspiration from technology and proper magic alike are often in the middle between rational and mystical, and are almost always external like them. But I won't be putting here a generic Pathfinder alchemist as an example. That's too easy. Let's go with Hextech from the League of Legends franchise that is used there by non-mages. This is the perfect example here, as the whole plot point behind it is to allow science nerds to use magic in a logical and predictable manner, but still keeping its effects quite mystical and unbound by the rules of science. Our D&D guest class here is the Artificer, who is basically doing the same thing, still using the weave, but with technology creating artifacts. In the center of the Quadrature, we have fully undetermined magic systems, aka templates. That's because those are often make it whatever you want systems that have a little lore about them, being extremely vague on purpose, mostly appearing in make your own story types of RPGs. Psionic Pops, Shroud, Stellaris. It was coming from a mile away, as this video would not be finished without determining the system of Stellaris psionics. And it fits only here, as devs on purpose kept the psionic system vague so the player can impose his own ideas and imagination upon it. It's impossible to truly determine its position on the rational mystical axis. And what about the placement of the source? Well, Zroni had a specious ending war because of it, since it's possible to use just your own psionic potential, whatever it is, or get your power from the Shroud and slowly or rapidly consume the whole galaxy in the process. Surprisingly, we also have a D&D guests here, and those are the bards. You will think that they are just another external mystical users, like wizards, but no, they are using magic from everywhere. Spells, external mystical, bardic songs, rational undetermined, and on top of that, they have unexplained internal potential that gives them access to a prestige class that uses internal rational magic system rules. And speaking of internals, internal undetermined aka ego. Those are really hard to define because between internal mystical and internal rational there is a little space for compromise, unlike with alchemy. Yet money monster and racial abilities fit in this particular type of system. This is also a system that describes mana-based magic from video games if they don't have contradictory lore to it. As an example, I really wanted to put here Vampire the Masquerade, but when I go deeper and deeper in the vampire powers lore descriptions, the more mystical and external it gets. So screw it! Dark elves with their abilities from the Might and Magic 8. They are innate for this race and can grow over their lifetimes like a skill. First is pretty reasonable, as this is their natural elvish charm imbued with mana. Second power is their resourcefulness with practical magic, ability to cast 3 basic spells at once on master level with duration that is far longer than normal. Third power is a magical flashbang, extremely useful. And the Grandmaster ability is to shoot a bolt of dark flame that is more damaging and edgy than normal fire magic. All internal powers that range from rational to mystical the further you go. That's the perfect example of this magic system, and I don't wanna hear any complaints about it being from a niche 90s CRPG. Might and Magic 8 is popular enough for me, mostly because I like it and this is my channel. At the bottom of the quadrature, we start with external rational, aka technology. Like Arthur C. Clarke said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And after this quote, we coined the term Clarke-tech to describe any magical technology. And rational magic is somewhat like that, with the exception that it still has some unexplainable, reality-breaking part of it. Best example of it will be biotics in Mass Effect. Basically, an artificial buildup of the element zero in the nervous system that, with help of training and augmentation, allows to generate Mass Effect fields. Fully external and fully rational, with only the element zero being kinda magical in nature. Undetermined rational, aka skill. What kind of magic will be more internal than technology, but also more external than innate traits? Skills that someone can develop over time to the point of reality-breaking power. If someone thought about anime right now, he would be correct. Swordsmen with skills on a magic level are extremely prevalent there. But for an example, let's go into the sci-fi genre again and look at Dune this time. Specifically, the Bene Gesserit and their voice skill that allows them to control others by modulating their vocal tones, to the point of being indistinguishable from D&D command spell. And since we are on D&D, our guest here is Monk, the class inspired by wuxia media that bare-fisted can punch people in full plate to death. And yeah, I hear your criticism, how monks are rational with their Asian spiritualism and ki. They are explainable as energy manipulation and insane body training guided by philosophy rather than mystic arts. Kinda stretched, but compared to sci-fi examples, all instances of rational magic from fantasy always be a stretch here. Last magic type is internal rational, aka trait. Pretty self-explanatory, personal feature, possibly innate, that allows one to use some kind of internal energy or potential to achieve supernatural effects. Example, mutations from Marvel's X-Men, genetic defects, or should I say upgrades, that give more or less explainable superpowers. in some cases even escaping the line of rational and going straight to the divinity box. But most mutant powers are rational in nature. Foreshadow D&D guest here is the Dragon Disciple Prestige class, which gives the character fully internal draconic features like draconic skin, claws, breath, wings, and blind sense. All of this for sorcerers and bards that are draconic descendants. And that will be the end of my overthinking for today. So, dear viewer, do you find my quadrature useful? Maybe have a magic to analyze? Please write a comment and let me know. Meanwhile, see you in the next video!